And we turn now to House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy. He joins us from Bakersfield, California. Mr. Majority Leader, we want to talk about the tax cut. The congressional scorekeepers have weighed in and said that this will increase deficits by $1.5 trillion. Supporters, of course, say there will be economic growth that will take care of that problem. But I was looking back at the claims made for the Bush tax cut in 2001. There was a Heritage study that said that debt would be gone entirely from those tax cuts. So things sometimes don't turn out the way everybody hopes. Given that, and given this score of $1.5 trillion in the deficit, isn't this a huge gamble for all of the reasons that Republicans have long said about adding to the deficit and debt?
No, and really, John, look at this. For decades, the hardworking Americans have been ignored or forgotten from Washington, but not anymore. This Tax Cut and Jobs Act bill is going to be the start change of that. And let me give you 3 points why. First, it lets every American keep more of what they earned. If you're single, the first $12,000 is tax-free. If you're a couple, $24,000. That means the average family is going to save almost $1,200 more in their pocket. So the first $55,000 a family of 4 earns will not be taxed at all. Second, what it does for small business. I created my first small business when I was 20. The lessons I learned: I was the first to work, I was the last to leave, I was last to be paid. They create more jobs than anything else. Bring it to 25% is the lowest it's been since World War II. And now to your question. I was in the Oval Office just this week. This is going to make America competitive again. Broadcom came in there based upon our tax bill. This is a company who left America because the taxes came too high. They announced because of the tax bill, they are moving back to America. That's $20 billion in revenue a year. But you know what's even more important? They put $3 billion every year into R&D and $6 billion into manufacturing. That's jobs, good-paying jobs for America.
Right. So those are the promises being made on behalf. But there's nevertheless the score from the people who do the accounting. They know about the economic effects here. They may not calculate them in every way you'd like, but there is a big risk here. We also will get to talk in a minute about whether everybody really does get a tax cut from this bill. But given how much Republicans have talked over the years about the dangerous effects of the debt and its downside on growth, the answers here are basically we've got to hope this turns out. Is there any mechanism to save the downside if things don't turn out as you would promise and hope that they would?
Look, there's a philosophical difference in Washington. Democrats do want to charge more and spend more. Republicans want you to keep more of your money and spend less. One thing that Republicans have shown since they took a majority, when it comes to discretionary spending, we've actually cut spending. We know where the challenge is when it comes to entitlements. We put those plans out there. We have to grow the economy and save the entitlements for the next generation by changing them to be actually prepared for the future. And you say these are studies, but think of this. Broadcom took an action to move their company back to America based on just the introduction of this bill.
But
that is stronger than any study out there that jobs are coming.
Well, but the study that's out there is by the congressional scorekeepers who will ultimately determine how this thing gets voted on and determine the rules of the Senate. But let me just finally, very quickly, often Republicans said the federal government needs to balance its budget like a family does. Would a family balance its budget based on this kind of promise of the future? Would that be wise family budgeting?
I think so, because the one thing I will tell you is it's only Washington who thinks letting a family keep $1,200 is not a lot of money.
Well,
let them make the investment. And the one thing, if you're going to grow the economy, think about the last 8 years. Always in America, we've averaged more than 3% growth, but the lowest of growth we've had in those last 8 years. If you look back to Bill Clinton, his worst growth year is higher than the largest of Barack Obama's. Growing the economy is the key to getting us working back and helping us to be able to balance the budget.
Let me ask you, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, said at the end of the day, nobody in the middle class is going to get a tax increase. Is that the case with the House legislation that is proposed? Everybody in the middle class will see no tax increase.
Look, we are cutting rates, we're not raising rates. So this is a tax cut. As I said,
will everybody get one in the middle class?
It is a fact that yes, it is a fact that if you are the first $55,000 you earn for a family of 4 will not pay any tax. So it is a tax cut to the middle class.
There is some discrepancy because there's some sunsetting of some of the provisions, including the child tax credit, so that some of the analysis done here finds that, in fact, middle-class families will end up paying more in years 2023 and 2024. So Is that math wrong, or why is there that discrepancy?
Well, John, as you understand, we've made most everything permanent. But because of the rules of the Senate, we could not make those permanent as we go forward. But I will promise you this. As the growth comes in, those will be kept. They will not go away within the tax credit in the 6th and 7th year. That's exactly what Chairman Brady has said as well.
But why
you
not
understand
guarantee that in the legislation?
Knowing the rules.
Why not guarantee it in the
Well,
legislation?
we know the rules. Well, the one thing we see because of the rules of the Senate, for us to move forward within the 6th and 7th, but we know with the growth, and you look at the studies coming in saying more than $1 trillion, we will keep those in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, 10th year.
Of course, the rules of the Senate are there to keep fiscal responsibility and keep gimmicks from happening. Let me ask you, though, about the individual mandate. Some people have talked about getting rid of the individual mandate that's a part of Obamacare in this tax legislation. Would you support that?
Well, I know people are talking about it. Currently is not in this bill. I know the Senate is looking at it. We will start marking up this bill in Ways and Means next week, and I look for having the bill on the floor the week after that. The Senate will come out with theirs shortly.
Would you like to see it happen now?
We do not currently have it in there. Look, my focus is on tax. It's the individual mandate, though. I would not be opposed to that, but I want to see this bill go forward so the American people can win and start keeping more of their own hard-earned money.
Finally, Mr. Majority Leader, the Speaker has said it would be naive to suggest that sexual harassment doesn't happen in Congress. Is there a sexual harassment problem in Congress?
Well, we're a microcosm of society. We take this very serious. The House administration is holding hearings on this coming forward to look at there's other rules. The Speaker and others, we put out a letter to every office to make sure they're taking training. My own office will be done with the training this month as well. There's no role for that inside the House, and we have to make sure that there are not problems inside the House as well.
All right, Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, thanks so much for being with us, and we'll be back in 1 minute.